Morning, everyone. We'll call the Bruce County Planning and Development Committee to order for our Thursday, October the 27th meeting. Chairman Dave is going to be a few minutes late, so we'll start off. I'll try and start off. We welcome everyone of our online listeners that are here or at home listening. And we again ask anyone to please lean in and speak up in your microphone so our at-home listeners can hear better what's going on. And the first item on the agenda then is I need to remind everyone it's our own responsibility to disclose any pecuniary interest that you may have on today's agenda. You can do so as the matter arises. And then we're moving, next item is we got 4 public meetings this morning. The first public meeting is going to deal with the Bruce County Official Plan Amendment.
This is amendment number 206 to the Bruce County Official Plan. And for those of you who are in the back of the room, we have 4 public meetings today that are required under the Planning Act. And the process here in the county is that we'll have the staff planner who prepared the report give a summary and recommendation, and the reports have been circulated previously to council for their review. After the planner gives a report, then there'll be an opportunity for council to ask any questions of the planner. And then the chairman, seated to my left, will then open up the public meeting for anybody who would like to speak in favor of or opposition to the application, after which time council will be considering the recommendation provided for in the staff report. So I'd like to introduce Brianne Labute, and she is the planner for this file, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Do you want to just scroll down maybe to the map on there?
Yep.
Perfect. So this will just be a quick one. We have an amendment here proposed to sever off a 2.04 hectare severance from the subject property to permit an enlargement of the lot below there, which is Sprucedale Agromart. Sprucedale Agromart blends fertilizer, provides and applies crop protection products, and supplies crop inputs. So under the provincial policy statement, it is considered an agricultural related use, which is permitted in the agriculture designation. So essentially, the official plan amendment is just to permit this severance because there is an undersized lot involved. So the planning department is recommending that this official plan amendment is approved.
Questions from council?
Any questions on the, welcome David, I'll just finish this matter up and you just get right over here. This, any questions from the committee on the application?
Yeah, members of the public.
Does any member of the public wish to make any comment on this matter? You're welcome to do so. Just please state you can speak there in the mic if you don't mind. Please just state your name.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of council. My name is Sam Head. I'm a planning consultant in Kitchener. I'm working with Agromart across Ontario to expand most of their operations. So with me today is Rob Helm. He's the owner of Sprucedale Agromart. He's been looking to expand as well, and the opportunity has come up from Mr. Lippert, who owns a property to the north of his site, to buy the 5 acres for expansion. So we're going through the process of the official plan amendment because of the lot size for the remaining farm parcel. And we've got applications before the municipality for a zone change and the consent to transfer the lands. Once this is approved, the 2 lots will be amalgamated into one large holding. And we're looking to expand our equipment storage area, parking for future employees. We're looking to build a warehouse on the site as well to serve the agricultural community and the customers that are located there. It's not feasible to look elsewhere because we have thousands and thousands of dollars invested there. So we're looking to expand on site, and we're looking for council's approval today to adopt the amendment to the official plan, so then I can move forward with the municipal zoning bylaw amendment and the consent. So we're here to answer any questions of council, and I've been very helpful from the staff. They've been very good. They've processed the application, gave me direction so that this would come before you. So I'd like to thank the staff for that. Mr. Chairman, any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions of this presenter? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council.
Does any other members of the public wish to make any comments on this matter? If not, Chris, will you read off the recommendation, please?
That Bruce County Official Plan Amendment number 206-1634 be approved as per the details included in the staff report.
We have a mover and seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Mike, seconder Robert. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? That's carried. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to welcome the chairman of the Bruce County Planning Committee. And we'll just do a little switch here and be right back at you.
Thanks, Paul.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oops. Okay, where are we at?
We're going to move to this one.
Yep.
9:40, yeah, we're good. 9:45, we're good. Yep.
Well, good morning, everyone. I apologize for being a few minutes late. We just opened up a new electric vehicle or charging station in Brockton, and cooperation with Bruce Power and Plug and Drive. So we're fully charged and ready to go. Chris, carry on.
Thank you. This is an amendment here on Kinloss, and this is the adoption of a new plan. And as council is aware, some years ago, there was a delegation of planning approvals to Bruce County Council, and that is that we have the ability to approve local plans and plan amendments. And the planner on this file is David Smith. He's been working very closely in conjunction with Huron Kinloss over the last number of months, if not probably over a year now. The idea was to update their plan and provide new policies that will direct development over the next 20-year period. And also interesting to note that here in Kinloss, we only have 2 municipalities in the county that have plan coverage in the countryside. And in this case, the plan is coming forward with that removed, with the reliance upon the county plan policies in the countryside for here in Kinloss, and additionally updated policies for the urban area. So then I'll turn it over to Dave, then if you could please give a summary and a recommendation.
Good morning. For the public, there is a public registry available for Bruce County Official Plan Amendment Number 210, which is in conjunction with the approval of the Huron Kinloss OP. If you would like to sign in, if there's anybody here from the public for it. Thank you, Chris. As mentioned, there are 2 things in the report. One is the Huron Kinloss OP itself, and the second one is Amendment 2010 to the County of Bruce official plan in order to merge or to bring the 2 plans into conformity with each other. Basically, it's changes in mapping in order so that our plan and the Huron Kinloss plan both match each other in terms of settlement area boundaries, the outsides of where the various towns and hamlets occur. The Township of Huron Kinloss has worked very closely with their consultant, and we were quite lucky to work with them also. The county made a number of recommendations for modifications before Huron Kinloss adopted the plan, which were well received by both the consultant and by council, and that has made things very simple at this particular stage. Even though the report is quite long, what we found was that there are the consultant and together with the county and municipal staff found there were a number of small mapping errors that showed up throughout the maps, which is why the modification is mainly mapping wise. We cannot show you the small changes because of the scales of the maps, but we can tell you that they have been reviewed by both their consultant and by municipal staff, and overall are in agreement with the modifications to the mapping. The second part of the modifications was some minor changes within a policy section that were agreed to in terms of secondary suites, which are somewhat new to the official plan for the township. The County of Bruce, again, official plan is relatively simple. It's just matching our boundaries with the new proposed official plan boundaries coming from here in Kinloss, and that way everything as we move forward will be in conjunction with each other. There's also some small policies that needed to be deleted because they're no longer applicable, and that's basically where we were at today. There were no, the process saw the township itself consulting with the public. The township issued a notice of adoption to all those players that, and all those people who were involved in their development of the official plan, telling them to come and notify the County of Bruce of any interest in their in the plan as it goes forward. In terms of circulation and all the rest of it, we received no comments from the public about the plan itself, and the agencies themselves are satisfied with the changes also. Therefore, the recommendation before council this morning.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions from council? Yes, Ann?
I was looking at the, it says Holyrood Land Use Modified Plan, and I'm looking at the map, and Holyrood looks the same to me as, you know, I don't know what the original was, so I was just wondering, why does it say modified? Is it enlarged or shrunk from the original?
All right, so Holyrood is, so the Township of here in Kinloss adopted a smaller Holyrood. The county made a recommendation back to them to leave a little bit more land in it. So the mapping you're seeing is a smaller Holyrood overall from what it exists today.
Okay, thanks. I was just kind of looking at the chunks of land for buildings, and I thought it looks pretty well the same, but it used to be bigger then.
Yeah, the north side of the county roadway, those lots, those used to go back further into the farmland, and they chopped it off.
Okay, thank you. And I just had one more question. So in the rural area, which seems to be largely east of County Road 1, and I asked Deputy Mayor over here from here in Kinloss, but I just wanted to be sure. So is there a restriction on the size of farms? Like the 50 acres is the smallest a farm can be in the rural area?
You're good to go, Dave.
All right, so we're now talking county official plan,
Oh,
correct?
sorry, I just went through it last night, and
All right.
these are the things I picked out.
Right.
Sorry.
So as the director pointed out, the township has removed their plan coverage in the rural and agricultural areas, leaving the county plan as the sole plan. Your interpretation is correct. Most of their rural lands are east of the county road, and 50-acre farm lots are permitted with certain caveats to that in a rural designation.
Okay, so nothing under 50 acres?
Not in the county plan. No, we are status quo in the county plan. Those did not change from this amendment here before you.
Okay, sorry if I should have waited for that question.
No.
Any further questions from council? Seeing none, are there any comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, I do have a recommendation that the Township of Huron Kinloss official plan be approved as modified as shown in Appendix B, and that County of Bruce official plan amendment number 210 be approved as modified as shown in Appendix C. Is there any further discussion from council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we
I need a
didn't.
mover.
Yep.
Sorry. Could I have a mover? Ann? And Milt? And again, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, on to 2C.
So this is also a public meeting required under the Planning Act, and this is an amendment number 211 to the Bruce County official plan. And this, sometimes when we receive applications, we have two options bringing it forward. One is to simply provide the background information, and for council's consideration, allow members of the public to speak in favor of or opposition to the application, to come back with a subsequent report, as opposed to providing a recommendation on the same day. So this is a case whereby we're doing that. To hold the public meeting, there's some preliminary information regarding the application from Molly, who has been the planner, on the file. As the Kinney is aware, we receive many applications for surplus farm severances within the county. And we have an application here. I believe this is potentially the first one we've received to apply under those policies for a corporation that does not appear on the face of it to be a bona fide farmer or meet the requirements under the county official plan. So the purpose of the amendment is to exempt themselves from that provision in the county plan, and Molly will give you some details in relation to that application. Mike.
The application we have before us this morning is an official plan amendment to the county plan to facilitate a surplus farm dwelling severance. In order to sever a surplus farm dwelling, the plan states that the owner of the lands must be a bona fide farmer. The bona fide farmer must own and farm the lands on which the surplus dwelling is proposed to be severed from, own and farm other lands, and own a residence elsewhere or reside as a tenant elsewhere. In situations where the agricultural portion of the lands is rented in whole or in part to others, the owner shall not qualify as a bona fide farmer. The applicant, Bonifield, is a corporation that holds ownership and leases of farmland as its primary business. Their affiliation with the farmland under its ownership is limited to the management of lease agreements. As such, relief from the plan is required. It's my recommendation this morning that this report be received as information. The Planning Department will consider comments received today at the public meeting and return with a recommendation to be presented at a subsequent meeting. The applicant's planning consultant, Christine Loft, is here with us this morning. The provincial policy statement permits a resident surplus to a farming operation to be severed from an agricultural parcel if it is habitable and can be demonstrated that the dwelling is surplus as a result of farm consolidation. Farm consolidation is further defined in the PPS as the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. The owners of the land are a large investment and property management company. Information provided by the applicants indicates that the company invests in and holds farmland for long-term capital appreciation and income. The company does not farm the lands themselves, but rather provides tenants with long-term leases to these lands. Based on the understanding of this business model, while the farmland will not be lost as a result of the application and can be protected for the long-term use of agriculture, it is not consistent with the provincial policy statement. Typically, a dwelling will become surplus when a bona fide farmer purchases an additional farm to consolidate with the existing farm operation. The bona fide farmer lives in an off-site dwelling and does not require the additional dwelling on the recently acquired farm. The onus is on the applicant to demonstrate how they meet the definition of a bona fide farmer for the purposes of the county official plan. The county plan policies limit the creation of new non-farm lots in the agricultural areas to minimize farm fragmentation and the conflicts that can arise between agro-industrial and more sensitive land uses. These policies have provided an exemption to bona fide farmers, including corporate farm operators, whereby an existing dwelling on a farm could be severed in situations where an additional farm property was acquired for consolidation with their farming operation and the dwelling was not required for their own use. The applicant owns these lands as well as other lands nationwide, which includes other holdings within Bruce County. It is our understanding that the land will remain in agricultural use and a restriction will be applied to prohibit future dwellings on the retained land through a joint application for rezoning. However, they have failed to demonstrate how they qualify as a bona fide farmer who will operate their multiple farm holdings as a single operation. As such, the application is not consistent with the policies of the Bruce County official plan. Should the council of this committee see the application as appropriate and to meet the intent and purpose of the county OP, a subsequent zoning bylaw amendment will be presented to the council of the municipality of Kincardine to prohibit residential buildings and accessory structures from being permitted on the retained agricultural lands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Molly. Comments or questions from council? Yes, Ann?
So, all sides of my family, a long farm background in Bruce County. And I guess maybe this is the wave of the future in Ontario and possibly Canada, where the average farmer, and especially the next generation of farming, cannot afford to buy farmland necessary. And, are we heading towards being a tenant and tenant farmers of large corporations? And I'm nothing against the existing corporation, Bonfield. It's just, I know there are, my husband told me there's quite a few large corporations doing this type of thing. But personally, I hate to see this happening in Bruce County. I don't know whether we can do anything about it, but is this where we want agriculture to go? And do we have any choice? And I still think maybe we have to go to the province and say, look, if you want young farmers farming, you have to consider smaller acreages, 50 acres or so to get started. Or otherwise, we're going to end up with corporate ownership all across Ontario and maybe other provinces. But this is a real concern of mine. So that's just my feelings on the issue right now.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Anyone else? Mike?
Just, just kind of for clarity, I think what we're talking about here is the issue of surplus farm dwellings. The ownership issue is something else, which we can't do anything about through land use planning. So I think really, Anna, this is where farming is going. These are creative and new ways of financing and growing farming operations. So I have no comment on whether I think that's a good idea or not, but I think about the particular idea of surplus farm dwellings, they're caught in a very unusual situation here, and I think we need to deal with it. I think otherwise we see these again. The original intent of those severances, I believe, was to ensure that there was at least some still good buildings and people living in the countryside. And I think to allow these severances, I think I would support the idea of amending the plan to allow, say, these corporations to be classified as bona fide farmers. They really are farmers. They're just they're in an innovative new way that the plan never envisioned from day one. And I think we need to be able to look at these innovations and do them.
Yes, Milt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with Mike's comments. I think they are a corporate or an investment opportunity, I guess, but so are large corporations. I mean, the larger corporations that do farm, you're going to get into corporate farming no matter what you do. So I think for us to accommodate this surplus farm dwellings from these investment companies, and I think they do rent the land back to farmers. And this, I think it is an opportunity for anybody, and younger farmers, if they want to rent this land. So it provides an opportunity for them to become involved in agriculture, I think, as well, without buying.
Okay, any further comment from council? Anyone from the public like to speak regarding this issue?
On behalf of Bonnefield. So thank you for having me. The subject lands are known as 3420 Highway 21 and legally known as lots 6 and 7 on concession 4. The lands have a total lot area of approximately 58 hectares or 148 acres and a lot frontage of 380 meters onto Highway 21. So the proposal is to sever a parcel of land which today has an existing residence, barn, and storage building that is utilized primarily for storage. The parcel is 1.3 hectares in size or 3.4 acres with a frontage of 95 acres. The retained parcel would then be about 57 hectares or 142 acres. So I'll just first start in that I had initially just applied for a zoning and a consent application. I did have further discussions with staff at that point that they would require an official plan amendment in order to amend the definition of Bonifield. So I hadn't initially applied for that, and in any other applications on behalf of Bonifield, I have never had to apply for an official plan amendment to the definition of Bonifield. We have had other OPAs, but dealing with other items like lot area as an example. So the application has been based on the surplus to a farming operation policies. The residents and the structures proposed to be severed are surplus to the farming operation, and the severed lands are proposed to be sold. While the agricultural lands would obviously be retained by Bonifield, the lands are currently on a long-term lease, so that would continue on. Bonifield, I know Molly had given a bit of an overview, but I would just like to cover just a few items more closely related to how they interact with the farmland, and that, yes, it is an investment company, but they are very involved in the agricultural industry. So Bonifield is incorporated. It was established in 2009 and is a leading farmland investment and property manager that actively invests in and manages their farmland. So the goal is to preserve farmland for farming. They monitor multi-year agrology, they monitor crop rotation, they monitor fertilization plans, and they identify opportunities for improving the physical maintenance and the layout of their farmlands. Bonifield, their own principles are environmental stewardship, as well as sustainable farming and agricultural practices, and the goal is to be a long-term partner with farm operators. Bonifield owns and leases 80,000 acres in Canada, and they have 75 tenants. So it does show you that they do have a lot. Their tenants are generally fairly large-scale tenants with multiple hundreds of acres under lease. Bonifield owns 11 other parcels within the municipality. As the planner for Bonifield in Southern Ontario, I have now completed about 50 applications for them. Those applications have all been within the counties of Grey and the county of Dufferin. I will clarify that not all of those applications have been surplus farm dwellings. Many of them have been for 100-100 splits where within a whole concession, so say 1,000 acres have merged. So we've ended up severing them into either 100 or 200 acre parcels. So certainly of those 50 applications, they're not all surplus farm dwellings. So the creating and often the recreating of lots enables Bonifield to lease the large agricultural parcels, primarily on long-term leases, and to sell out the residents located on the property. In all cases of surplus farm dwellings that I have completed, there was a tenant in those houses, and it was that tenant that was purchasing the house. So typically, the tenant would come to meetings with me, and they were completely vested in the process. For them, it was going to allow them to purchase the house. So in my experience, Bonifield has established good working relationships with the host municipalities and counties at both a political level as well as a staff level, having meetings and discussions regarding their plans on specific funds or special projects. And so these special projects include large tile drain projects, they include irrigation infrastructure, land clearing for agricultural purposes, land improvements, and also construction of large storage facilities, for example, grain. So Bonifield undertakes these types of projects on their own, facilitated primarily by their consultants. If they need any planning approvals, then that's through me, and it's all financed through Bonifield. So the proposal is to sever an existing residence and buildings. Obviously, the application is reliant on provincial policy and the policies surrounding residential surplus. The subject lands are two parcels that have merged on title due to the ownership. So we find this generally lands owned are within the same corporation name, and because we're dealing with parcels which are often never have been through a consent or subdivision process or on registered plans of subdivision, they end up merging. So the intent is to sell the existing residence. The lands are vacant today and so not rented out. In all of the applications that I've applied Bonnefield for surplus, my opinion has been that they do, that they are consistent with the provincial policies and that they do function as a farming facility, that the lands in no way are coming out, or the farmlands are in no way coming out of the agricultural industry. We always apply, obviously, for implementing zoning where the farmlands are rezoned with a special exception to identify that there can be no future residential use on those parcels. Bonnefield is not in the business of being a renter of houses. They lease tracts of land, and so the goal really is to sell existing houses if the tenant does not want to live in them, to sever those off and to sell to populate an area, which I've seen in other municipalities. So just in closing, I have spoken at length with Bonnefield, obviously, about these applications. They are the first applications that we have not had staff support. So it's been, you know, a little different for us, and Bonnefield trying to feed me as much information and ensuring that whatever staff needs to sort of justify the practices that Bonnefield undertakes, that we do supply that information. I have supplied a fairly in-depth initial planning report and a second addendum report as well, so I feel like I have tried to give staff as much as I can. Bonnefield, we had an issue with notice for this meeting, so I wasn't able to have anyone from Bonnefield attend today, but I did speak to them yesterday, and we're certainly happy to set up a meeting with staff and to have Bonnefield join us if a in-person meeting is helpful to staff and to understand the structure of Bonnefield and that they are invested in the agricultural industry and that they simply are not just landlords. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that this report be received as information. Comments received from the Planning and Development Committee and the public will contribute to the formation of the recommendation to be presented at a subsequent meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Milt? Robert? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right, moving on to 2D. Chris?
Number 212, and again, Molly is the planner in the file, and she'll give a summary of the report with a recommendation.
Thank you, Chris. This application is an official plan amendment to the county plan to facilitate a surplus farm dwelling severance. The lands are designated agricultural area and hazard land area. Agricultural land division policies of the county plan state that an original Crown surveyed lot shall not be divided into more than 2 parcels, including the retained. The lands are comprised of 3 different Crown parcels, and numerous other lots have been severed off, most of which are located within the boundaries of the village of Tiverton. It's my recommendation that the Bruce County Official Plan Amendment be approved and that the Director of Manager of Land Use Planning be authorized to sign the appropriate approval or decision sheet. The applicant and the applicant's planning consultant are here with us this morning. Lot creation as a result of a residence surplus to a farming operation is permitted in prime agricultural areas. The applicants, Mr. and Mrs. Hopper, are bona fide farmers that own extensive farm holdings and reside elsewhere. The applicants have recently acquired the subject land, and as a result of farm consolidation, the dwelling has been rendered surplus to their needs. The new lot is proposed to be limited in size to that needed to accommodate the dwelling and sewage and water services, and through a subsequent zoning bylaw amendment, new residential dwellings will be prohibited on any remnant parcel of land. As previously stated, the lands are comprised of 3 different Crown parcels. There have been numerous lots severed off within these Crown parcels, most of which are in Tiverton. The lands subject to this application are comprised of 2 lots, which are to be merged into 1 larger parcel as a condition of consent. The proposed surplus farm dwelling severance meets the intent and purpose of the county official plan and the provincial policy statement by preserving and maintaining large parcels of agricultural lands. Currently, the lands are zoned general agriculture, agricultural, commercial, industrial, environmental protection, and travel trailer park and campground. The subsequent zoning bylaw amendment will prohibit residential buildings and structures from being constructed on the retained agricultural parcel. The retained agricultural parcel will be rezoned to permit a reduced lot area of 31.3 hectares, where 39 hectares is required, and the agricultural, commercial, and industrial and travel trailer park and campground zoning will be removed, and there will be no proposed changes to the land zoned environmental protection. In summary, the application is consistent with the PPS, meets the intent of the county official plan, represents good land use planning, and should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council? Nothing? Any from the public? Yes, Ron?
Yes, good morning. Very briefly here. Am I on?
No. It's on the top.
Can you hear me now? Ron Davidson is my name, planning consultant. I'm here with Wayne and Linda Hopper. They own the subject property, obviously, and they are themselves active bona fide farmers. They own several farms in the south end of Bruce County and the north portion of Huron County. And this application, the official plan amendment is required, as you just heard from Molly, kind of a technical thing here. Some lots have been severed off already, most of which, though, are in the urban area. So it doesn't officially meet the requirement of the official plan that says you have to have the original farm parcel intact in order to qualify to sever off a surplus farmhouse. As Molly indicated, though, I guess the good news in this is that there are two separate farms that the Hoppers have purchased back to back. They form an L shape, and we think they've already merged, but if they haven't, as you heard, it will be a condition of severance. So yes, we're severing off a small lot, but the farmlands will actually grow in size because we're merging two properties together. And of course, that will, if it hasn't happened already, the merging, that will be done before the deed can be stamped or as a condition of getting the deed stamped. That's, I think, all I have to say. I know you have a busy schedule today, or busy agenda, so I'll just sit down unless you have questions for me.
Okay. Are there any questions from council or comments? No, we're good. Thank you. We have a recommendation that Bruce County Official Plan Amendment number 12-1621 be approved as follows. Notwithstanding the policies of section 6533, the land described as site-specific policy area 5.5.13.67 on Schedule A land, use plan part Lot 59, Concession B, part lots 59 and 60, Concession C, Municipality of Kincardine, Geographic Township of Kincardine, may be severed to a maximum total area of 0.924 hectares, and all other policies of section 6.5.3 shall apply. A mover and a seconder? Ann? And Paul? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Down to 3A.
3A.
Kara's doing that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. The report in front of you is with regards to a public-private partnership with an organization based out of Saugeen Shores called Tourist Town. This company's goal is to improve economic development websites for our small towns, and I really look at them as a bit of a good news case study on entrepreneurship and looking for opportunities in rural communities to develop innovative ideas. So what they have done over the last several years is they have grouped together with a number of municipal partners and regions, which you can see listed there in the report. And they have started to build an online platform for our visitors. And through that, they've really tried to coordinate the online presence. So when Right now, I'll be quite honest, when people come and visit or look to our region for information, there's a number of different portals that they can access, a number of different information sources. Explore the Bruce is one of the bigger ones. We do receive over 1.5 million visitors to that website every year. But we do struggle to keep the coordination of the information on that website up to date. And we struggle also with sharing information between our partners at the municipal level, our BIAs, our chambers, that sort of thing. So one example that really illustrates that struggle would be with regards to events. And right now, if people want to post events, they do have to go on and log into sort of the back end of numerous websites in order to get those events posted. So we end up with duplication or inaccurate information, and again, that visitor experience does sort of fall to the wayside when we have those things happening. So out there in the landscape, we have a little bit of a disjointed experience. Got to compete against the hammering. Disjointed experience with regards to that online presence. So as I said, this is a small business owner in Saugeen Shores that has seen an opportunity to sort of work with the communities to address those issues. And what they're suggesting is that there's one platform that's shared between all parties or partners that coordinates that information. And on the second page there, I included sort of a little bit of a funnel. And that's kind of our overall goal, is that at the county level that we're able to market the dream or the experience of coming to Bruce County. And you've seen some of that move forward in examples with our recent 101 Places book, with our map this year where we featured 9 or 10 of our what we call in-house our rock stars. And then really what we want to do is at the planning level is we want to start to create sort of sub-regions, and those are based around the peninsula, the lakeshore, and the interior. And that is to move people around and get them to experience more than just what they see at sort of that rock star level. So it really is to get people moving around, experience the entire county. And then really where we see the economic development or the economic incentive to this is at the I don't know if it's the bottom of the funnel or the top of the funnel, but is at the planning or the selling level, which is where people are closing sales in their stores or with their outfitters or through experience development with those visitors. So we really want to make sure that that funnel works really well. And over the years, when we started the Explore the Bruce website, we used to participate in all 3 of those levels. We would keep operator listings, that sort of thing. We tried for a period of time to encourage our small business owners to keep those listings up to date themselves. We've struggled to keep those listings up to date, and it takes an immense amount of staff time and effort to do that. So what's being proposed through this pilot is, again, that common platform, which at the local level, that this organization, Tourist Town, is dealing with our local businesses. They're encouraging them to get online and create that profile. That profile is then linked through the chambers, through the municipalities, to that sub-regional level. And then through that, we can access at the county level as well. So again, it starts to deal with those issues of coordination and sharing of information. So, and as I use that events example, again, that event could be inputted by a local business owner or a local chamber, and it only needs to be inputted once, and it funnels through all of those various websites in order to be accessible to the public. So there's a number of key features and benefits that I've outlined in the report. I won't go through them in detail, but the county joining this network does really support it and has the real potential to make us one of the leaders, I think, for the sharing and dissemination of information. It also has the potential to expand. So there is, as you see, the list of communities that are participating. It's not everyone that's participating, but through this model, it would then allow us to sort of outroll the model to those communities that haven't currently participated. So we could get additional communities online as well. So what we proposed to committee today is a 1-year pilot project with Tourist Town in order to see how this would go. So it is a transfer of the explorethebruce.com to Tourist Town. The intent being that all information supplied by the county, it remains the property of the county. And if at any time the partnership is dissolved, that all that material would be returned. There isn't, attached to this report, there's some outline of the financial considerations. Staff intend to handle that financial consideration within our existing budgets that we set aside every year for our online resources. So again, this is a pilot project we're looking at. There'll be some measurement in place to make sure that it's successful, but I really do think it grows the opportunity, and as I said, places Bruce County as one of the leaders for how to handle the online experience. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Are there any questions from council? Yes, Kelly?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just before the opportunity for questions, I'd like to make just a couple of comments in case there's concern. This is in no way representative of an operational issue with our IT department, that the nature of this is right at this point in time, the county is really concerned and hearing the feedback from members of the community that individuals who are effectively volunteers in the various communities are having to enter the same information multiple times. It's not the current arrangement is not conducive to building capacity within the communities. And to Kara's comment about the need to do this on a pilot basis, it will allow us to test and to ensure that, in fact, this could be a terrific solution for the individuals in all of your communities, so that we can elevate today what our as a region, what our messaging is in the public domain.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Yes, Ann?
I think this is a worthwhile pilot, and I know that it's hard if you're dependent on this little local group and that little local group and their volunteers. It depends on the time of the volunteers and everything, and so I think this would be a more even effort across all groups and regions and be of better quality, but we'll find out in the pilot.
Any others? Paul?
So the group that's willing to do this work for, what I read, 20,500 a year is called Tourist Town. Was this, like, who is Tourist Town, and was other companies sought out? Did this go through a tender process to see if there's other firms and organizations that can do the same thing?
So Tourist Town is a small business, as I said, operated out of Saugeen Shores, so I feel like saying they probably have 3 or 4 employees, and then do work with some additional people for programming and that sort of thing. To answer your question, it was not put out to RFP. They have built what I think of as sort of an innovative platform. It's kind of like thinking of it as a Facebook or something like that. So it's more of a service than it is something that we're buying. And they've built that and secured, as I noted, those local partners and regional partners. And so that piece is already in place, so it would be the county joining that model that's already in place.
Okay, Paul, does that answer your question?
No. Who are the principal owners of Tourist Town? Do they have a name? Is it a numbered company? Like, is there a chairman, a president, a proprietor? Who is Tourist Town?
The name of the owner of Tourist Town is Brad Smith.
Any further questions? Oh, yes, Janice?
I think it's a great idea. I'm just wondering, out of curiosity, so if somebody typed in explorethebruce.com, what would come up? Explore the Bruce or Tourist Town? Or a link to...
It'll be Explore the Bruce, so from the user standpoint, it'll be seamless. You won't know that where it's hosted, sort of thing. So it'll still be explorethebruce.com, and it'll be a lot more streamlined on how we channel people then into those regional pieces, the lakeshore, the peninsula, and the interior, and then through to the individual communities as well.
Any other I think it's a good idea, and we'll certainly know after a year how it works, and go from there. Okay? I have I had a recommendation here. It's gone. Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee receive the public-private partnership with Tourist Town report for consideration, and that the Planning and Development Committee authorize the Director of the Planning and Development or his designate to move forward the necessary agreements for the partnership with Tourist Town for a one-year pilot project. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Ann, seconded by Milt. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, we're on to item B. And Chris?
Might as well get Karen to summarize that one as well.
Yeah. So there's a map attached to this report, which probably is the best way to illustrate what's being asked of the county. So there's a group called the Waterfront Regeneration Trust, and this is a charity that's been working for 20 years to connect waterfront communities and First Nations with regards to a waterfront trail. They've approached the county in order to be a supporter of the trail. They're looking at expanding the trail in 2017. It's a 2-year project, 2017, 2018. And on the map there, you can see the expansion piece. It's a little small, but it does go through Bruce County, and it's connecting Grand Bend to Espanola. And there's also a branch in Owen Sound where it would then go around Georgian Bay. So they're looking at this group, as I said, is a charitable organization. They do a number of fundraising and various means and applications to secure the funding. So they're looking at budgeting about $300,000 in that 2-year period to connect that piece that you see on the map. What they're looking for from the county is, again, our support, and then also our help in coordinating with our local municipalities. Again, I think from my conversations with them, and most of the trail will be through at the local level. There may be points where it needs to be on a county road or something like that, but ultimately our goal is to provide that waterfront experience, so typically it is at the local level. So they're looking for the county's support in principle and to help coordinate at the local level. And then again, annually, they'll be asking for some partnership contributions to helping that organization move forward. And as I noted in the financial section of the report, staff would just look at funding this out of our partnership funding annually. Thank you.
Anything? I have a recommendation. I will read that first. That the Planning and Development Committee support in principle the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail development in Bruce County, and that the Planning and Development Committee authorize the Director of Planning and Development or his designate to sign a letter of support, and it says non-financial, as attached in Appendix B. Discussion, or I need a motion to approve that. Moved by Ann, seconded by Mike. Discussion? Mitch? Or Milt? Sorry.
Just a question with regards to what is required for them to dedicate a road as a trail? Like what is like I see it's a cycling route, right? Or that's one thing.
That's one aspect.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, that's one aspect of it. I believe it's more of a trail surface if they can. Again, this is just an initial conversation with this group, so I haven't gotten too involved in the details of what the criteria might be. But I think the $300,000 is dedicated to sort of upgrading, supporting, helping move forward signage, that kind of thing related to the trail route. So, but I'm not entirely certain on the criteria they choose.
Okay. Yes, Ann?
So just as a follow-up to Milt's, for example, our Beeline Trail that we're working on in the municipality of Kincardine, I know our Trails Committee tried to get all the trail right within view of the lake or close to, even closer to the lake. I mean, the Beeline's pretty close, but they worked for a long time and they got permission to go through a lot of private property in places, but they couldn't get it all. So does it have to be within a certain distance of the lake, or would our beeline trail kind of fall into that? Because we've already worked to get it along the beachfront, but some of the property owners, private property owners in places where you had to go on private property, we couldn't get that from Kincardine to Lorne Beach. So I'm just wondering if this will qualify, and if you could let us know.
Yeah, I think again, it's with the waterfront trail within proximity of the waterfront. So if I think of Grand Bend as an example, we can all picture the trail that runs and connects downtown Grand Bend to the park, and it's along the road, so you can't really see the waterfront from it, but it's still acknowledged as part of the waterfront trail. So I would imagine in Kincardine, the beeline would be fine. I don't want to speak on behalf of the trust, but I think that it would be fine. I think where the opportunity is with this group is for those places where we have gaps in the system. That's probably where they'll really focus their attention on, is how do we create linkages and connections between the pieces of trails that we have that are running around running along the waterfront. Again, you may have to come off-road to do those, that sort of, or so that's what they'll be working on, is that gap piece, I would imagine, more than anything.
Yeah, so ours is filling in a gap. There's other trails, and we'll connect for Bruce County with Huron, Kinloss, and Saugeen Shores, but in our own municipality, there's gaps in our trails, since we do have some that go closer to the lake, but it's difficult. Okay, thank you.
Any other comment? All right, I believe I read the recommendation, didn't I? We have it moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. (3C).
Thanks for the report. As you're aware, our staff have been working and following some of the proposed changes for the Greenbelt, which is part of the provincial plan review. And as you're aware, we fall within that area because of the Niagara Escarpment area. So Jack Van Dorp has been working with some of our local councils to canvass issues that they may have. With that, additionally, has attended a number of different meetings on the release of the proposed changes. As you recall, there was an extension to the time frame for commenting, and so therefore we've taken that opportunity to do more of an intensive review and come back with some recommendations, which Jack has for you today. I'd like to mention additionally that we have Patricia Craig today visiting council, and as you'll recall, Patricia is actually the county rep on the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and additionally a member of Northern Bruce Peninsula Council.
Thank you. Good morning. As Chris mentioned, we have provided some comments to the NEC in May 2015 and again in November 2015. And so some of the comments that you'll see here are sort of carrying those themes forward. Essentially what I wanted to do is review briefly with you this report, and we're recommending that you submit this report to the Niagara Escarpment Commission as the county's comments on the plan. There's four broad areas where they're looking at seeking comments. One is the actual text of the proposed Niagara Escarpment plan. And if we just run through that, we're on page 2 here of the report. The proposed Niagara Escarpment plan makes it very clear that it takes precedence over the provincial policy statement if there's a conflict. And it's also generally structured to try to harmonize the Niagara Escarpment plan together with the 3 other plans that are in effect, or that the province is reviewing. And the potential issue with this is that these other plans are generally intended to be implemented through local official plans and zoning bylaws and other things, whereas the Niagara Escarpment plan is a bit of a different plan, and it in many cases functions as a bit of a standalone plan. And so there's some concern that the high-level policies you get when you harmonize this plan with the other plans may not provide the level of detail that the Commission needs in order to implement the plan when it comes to considering specific proposals. One of the observations we noted is that they're proposing on-farm diversified uses and agriculture-related uses with no size restrictions for the on-farm or for the agriculture-related uses, and on-farm diversified uses at up to 10,000 square meters. So that could, we haven't run a scenario, but it could yield something like a 100,000 square foot machine shop out in the escarpment protection area, which may not be consistent with the objectives of the plan, being to maintain and enhance remaining natural heritage hydrologic features in the open rural landscape. We have some concern that the result of these policies could be that the Niagara Escarpment Plan would be more permissive than the county plan right next door. So that's something we have as a recommendation there to review the scale and range of activities, recognizing that the NEP can function as a standalone plan, and make sure that the Commission staff have the adequate policy detail and criteria to implement the plan. And this is a note. We look at this plan, and when it comes to implementation, it's not a plan that's actually implemented by county staff. It's implemented by the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and so it's a matter of trying to ensure that the objectives of that plan and it can be implemented in a manner that's consistent with what we do in the areas that we are under that are under our jurisdiction. The second sort of comment in this area is that the plan could create some implementation challenges for the county and its municipalities. The plan says that if a local zoning bylaw is silent on a development criteria, the development criteria still applies. And so this could create a problem for chief building officials or otherwise if they're issuing permits in compliance with applicable law in their zoning bylaws. But there's some development criteria that they're supposed to be considering as well, but have no means to do so under the zoning bylaw. Also in this vein is the concept of implementing authorities. And some of the obligations for implementing authorities, and it's not entirely clear whether municipalities play any role as implementing authorities, and so we would recommend that be clarified. The next area in the plan that we identified or flagged as an interest is secondary dwelling units. I believe David may have been mentioning those earlier in discussion of the Huron-Kinloss official plan. Secondary dwelling units are proposed to be permitted in the escarpment rural designation and also in shoreline designations. And the commission or the plan is saying that they would be within a dwelling and have some requirements that way. And also, if municipalities have policies that permit them, then they would follow the municipal policies. In Bruce County, in the shoreline areas, we don't permit secondary dwellings at all, and in the areas that are under our zoning bylaws. So it likely wouldn't be an issue there, but there are some areas that are shoreline areas where the commission still implements development control. And we would suggest that those are probably not appropriate areas for the commission to allow secondary dwellings under its policies because they're seasonal roads or very small lots. There's reasons why the commission has kept them under its development control as opposed to delegating the authority to manage them through the zoning bylaw to the municipality. So we would recommend that they have some baseline servicing policies. The ones we've suggested are those that are similar to the county's official plan when it comes to lot creation and development out in rural recreational areas. When it comes to recreational uses, this is something that the county's previous comments spent a bit of time on, and some of the recommendations are consistent with, or as we noted previously, that the NEPOS, or the Niagara Escarpment Parks and Open Space System, needs adequate financial resources for management plans and for implementation of these plan recommendations, both inside and outside of the parks. Generally, people are coming to the facilities and using them in our various nature reserves and parks and trails, but the costs of dealing with parking, congestion, emergency services, et cetera, are borne by the local municipalities. And in some cases, these facilities have not been developed to handle the numbers that they're experiencing. We also would suggest that they make sure that the uses that they describe as occurring in the parks reflect the uses that do occur in these parks. We'd suggest adding cycling together with their existing horseback riding, cross-country skiing, hiking, and snowmobiling as trail activities. And a last one that's probably most relevant to the northern parts of the plan area, such as our area, is that when the Bruce Trail is looking for its optimal route, that they be required to have some consultation with local municipalities to ensure that there's reasonable access for emergency services to trail users. There's a number of areas that are quite remote, and if moving the trail off of roads or into more optimum areas from the Bruce Trail's perspective is achieved, it would be good to be able to make sure that there's at least a reasonable way for our paramedics to get out there and our local fire departments. So that's our comments on the text. We have some comments as well on proposed additions to the plan area. We reviewed those in a report to you last November. Suffice it to say, our recommendation is that no additional lands within the former Lindsay Township be added to the Niagara Escarpment plan area. As it's staff's opinion, these lands do not meet the criteria that the Commission established for considering additions to the plan area. And so we think it's a fairly simple argument, and we'd put that forward. There's two fairly small areas in Lindsay Township that would be added, as well as two islands, Hay Island and Barrier Island. The third area that we've looked at and would suggest some comments on is changes to designations within the plan area. And generally what they're looking to do is update the mapping to reflect better data that they have about conditions on the ground and how different areas meet criteria for either escarpment natural, escarpment protection, or escarpment rural. In general, we place some maps in the appendices for this. In general, the changes are typically from less restrictive designations to more restrictive designations, and we have a table for you there. If you go up
down
a little bit more, the table shows that there's 3,200 hectares going from rural to natural, 4,200 going from protection to natural, 250 going from rural to protection, and in total about 350 hectares going from a more restrictive to a less restrictive designation. Over half of the lands that are proposed to be designated as a more restrictive designation are federal lands. Another 1,300 hectares of the total is about just over 12,000 hectares. About 1,300 of those lands that would be in more restrictive designations are held by the province, municipalities, conservation authorities, or other conservation organizations. And that leaves about 4,100 hectares of privately owned lands that would be subject to more restrictive designations. In the report, we identified some of the areas that would be subject to these more restrictive designations. We did review these with the local councils as well. And I should note that the Niagara Escarpment Commission did host a meeting in Owen Sound in September where they made this mapping information available to the public and had staff on hand to discuss it. So what does it mean if you go to a more restrictive designation? These, or a more protective designation, these could impact the range of permitted uses on a property. Mineral resource extraction, so pits and quarries, secondary dwelling units, as we mentioned, campgrounds, golf courses, and hotels are only permitted within the escarpment rural designation. They're not permitted in the more protective escarpment protection or escarpment natural designations. There are some other ones. We thought we'd sort of highlight those. New agricultural uses, agricultural-related uses, on-farm diversified uses, and home industries are not permitted also in the natural designation. And there is a possibility that lands that are in a more restrictive designation may qualify for conservation tax incentives. We did identify from looking at these a few areas where we think the Commission should just take a second look and make sure that the appropriate designations are applied. But we don't think they're particularly major and can probably be addressed at a technical level by their staff. The next area is site-specific urban boundary and urban use amendments. And these are amendments that municipalities had the opportunity to request and other parties to request these amendments to change or to permit make urban boundaries larger or change urban uses in areas that are not urban. We had reviewed a few areas and identified some changes that we thought might be appropriate in our previous comments. And the comments that we're presenting now continue to recommend that some lands in Wyerton be redesignated from escarpment natural to the escarpment urban area, and we've put together a submission to support that recommendation. We had previously identified redesignation of some lands in Hope Bay associated with a campground. From further conversation with the campground owner, his interests have changed, and so we don't think that's necessary anymore. And a change to the Dyers Bay Minor Urban Center, we have a path forward to deal with that should the county wish to do so. So those are our comments about that. In respect of Bayview Street, it essentially limits the opportunity to sever a few infill lots. So our recommendation is that it would be a minor. The outcome is somewhat minor to this, but it would facilitate some infill development for the town. We think it's a good thing, and we don't think it meets the criteria for being escarpment natural. The last area that I want to talk about is the Wyerton Airport, which is not in Bruce County. And before I do this, I should note that there could be the potential for perceived conflict of interest as members of my family own lands in the vicinity of the airport. So I wanted to make that clear and address it head on, and also make clear that the comments that I'll present to you have been reviewed with the director, and they're the comments of the county, not simply of the presenter. And so in this regard, the Township of Georgian Bluffs is proposing to expand the Wyerton urban area by 323 hectares to include the Wyerton Airport within the NEP area and redesignate it to an urban area with policies to recognize existing commercial, industrial, and institutional uses, as well as permission for new warehouse and office space. These lands are currently designated escarpment protection and escarpment rural, and we noted those criteria it appears to meet. Criteria for those designations. Generally, activities related to aviation are permitted at the airport at the present time. Expansion of the Wyerton urban area into this designation is unlikely to coincide with extension of infrastructure by the town of South Bruce Peninsula, which would typically be associated with urban areas. The airport has a municipal water supply, but no sewer supply. Uses and activities unrelated to aviation, our recommendation is, should be directed to serviced settlement areas, which are directed by provincial policy to be the focus of growth. Ancillary uses, if ancillary uses can't meet the test of being aviation related, then they should probably go into the Wyerton urban area, which has sufficient lands for the planning horizon and for which more comprehensive infrastructure is planned or available. We note that the town's OP does recognize the importance of the airport. There may be some challenges with capitalizing the facility that the airport owners may experience. However, diversification of uses beyond its primary aviation function could yield another underserviced and undercapitalized employment area on the fringe of a fully serviced community. So our recommendation would be that the request by Georgian Bluffs to expand the Wyerton urban area beyond the jurisdictional limits of the town of South Bruce Peninsula in order to include the airport lands should be declined. That's the summary of our report. We would recommend then that it be advanced to the commission, together with appendices A through D as the county's comments.
Thank you very much, Jack. You've certainly brought forward a report with a lot of work behind it and extensive research in bringing these recommendations forward. I think they're good recommendations. We have a motion before us. I will read that. That the committee forward the following report and appendices A through D to the Niagara Escarpment Commission and Ministry of Natural Resources as the county's comments on the proposed Niagara Escarpment Plan 2016. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Ann, second by Robert. Now, do we have discussion? Milt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank our Deputy Mayor, Patricia Gregg, for having the interest to sit in on this discussion here. So, and I want to compliment Jack as well. We were asking for some information to come forward, and Jack has put a lot of effort into this, and it was the transfer of lands to more restrictive policies. And he also produced a map that's in here that is, it is really good. The map that is in here, it really is easy to follow, and it shows you the change in designation for a lot of the properties. And you see that a lot of it is public property, which that's fine. And there are, though, about 4,000 hectares, 10,000 acres that are privately owned. It's privately owned property. And as in most planning changes, even our own local planning OPs or zoning bylaws, it's hard to get people interested to come out and actually take a look at what's happening. And the only thing a problem I have is that a lot of this will happen, and the people won't be aware that it happened, and they're into a more restrictive area. And to some, it won't matter, even in the privately held property. Some it won't matter, but some will be concerned about it. So, I don't know how we make a lot of effort to try and notify the public as to what is going on and the changes that are being made, but it's just, for most people, they just do not take the time, or it's overlooked by them. So, but the main thing is to thank Patricia, of course, and Jack for the work that's gone into this report. And yeah, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Milt. Ann?
So, you know, Milt and Janice are more familiar with this, so, like, my question is, like, with the airport and with this more restrictive 4,000 hectares or whatever, 10,000 acres, are you happy with the report then going on, or do you think we need to change some of it? Do you feel comfortable? Do your councils feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, I think, you know, as I said, for some of the people, this will not be an issue for them. So for us to comment on their property is a little, I think, is maybe stepping a little outside of where I should be, or we should be. But if people have identified to us, in which we have not, to the best of my knowledge, and I look to Patricia, we have not had a lot of people express concern. But that's further to the comment that I made, that a lot of people are not following the process either. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Thank you for asking, and I appreciate that. The majority of it is in northern Bruce Peninsula. We don't have very much in south. And most of it is private property. The largest chunk is Hay Island, and we have not received any objection or concerns at all either. So we're comfortable moving forward. Thank you, though, for asking.
Thank you. Yes, Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess, and I'd like to hear again from Mayor Jackson, my question is around the request by George and Bluss about the Wyerton Airport, and it appears that they're making an application and then we're taking a side on it already, and I kind of feel uncomfortable with that. I'd just sooner we didn't say anything about it, didn't comment at all. You know, whether it's the right planning or not, I think the commission can decide that, but, and, you know, I think we all know airports struggle, small airports struggle for just about anything to survive at all. And it, in my mind, I can be perceived as we're kind of standing in the way of something that may develop at the airport. You know, you take these lands, what the argument is, they're not in an urban settlement and serviced. That's what the request is, to put them in the urban settlement and then perhaps sometimes to service them. So I think that argument can be almost moot. But I just feel a little uncomfortable with saying, taking a side in this, because they can make their arguments, and I think, you know, there may be good planning. I know what the planning department's position is, and there may be good arguments either way. I think the difficulty is you only get this opportunity when the whole plan is reviewed, and it could be many years again before we get this opportunity. So I would like to see that part about the airport, that we don't take any sides and just take that comment out.
Jack, would you like to comment about that, or is that?
Maybe if I could
Chris?
just jump in, and I appreciate that comment. What we have is, from a planning perspective, I would look at it as Wyerton having an existing urban area, and then the overall county objective, and from the regional perspective, is have new growth and settlement within those areas, and we struggle to finance these things with capital for sewer and water and the rest of it. And my concern is that when we expand an urban area onto an existing urban envelope, and these lands are included in another jurisdiction, that in the short term and for sure in the long term, it can jeopardize growth objectives of the town and the county as well. And I understand exactly your perspective. I think at this point, if you would be comfortable to indicate that we would have a concern with those areas being brought in as an urban area, to the extent that it can impact the growth objectives of the town and the county, and it bears a broader discussion. That we were aware of it, and I think we should express our concern. And if you're happy to have them to the plan amendment, then certainly the county would need to be involved in that. There is other examples of where this does happen on the edge of urban envelopes, and it has, from a planning perspective, become problematic. So I'll throw it out there as a county issue from a staff perspective that I would be concerned with.
Just to say, for clarity, it sounds like you're suggesting perhaps a different option, rather than, like the recommendation says that we decline this, that we support declining this, and I, to be honest with you, I can't support that.
Can we state we'd be able to state our concern?
That's
that
fine.
Potential impacts
That's
the settlement objectives of what the Wyerton urban area and the county. And I think we at least put them on notice that this is something we need to further consider.
Yeah, that's fine, but that's where I'm hung up on. We've already made our mind up. We haven't even talked about it, and we're declining it, and I don't like that.
Okay, understood.
So we can make that change, take decline out,
Certainly.
and it's a concern that we would continue with. Okay.
I thank you, Mike, for making that point. I mean, I'm all for growth in and around the Wyerton area. It is odd that it's, you know, in a different county, and I can understand there's some oddities there, but I agree with your suggestion totally.
Okay, we can do that. Anything else from council? You've heard the recommendation. All those in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just before you take the vote, I do think that the amended recommendation should be stating it explicitly to make sure that it doesn't get lost.
So that with regard to the proposed urban designation of the Wyerton Airport, the county would express concern regarding impact on the growth and settlement objectives of the Wyerton urban area, as well as the county of Bruce.
Okay, thank you. Are we okay with that?
Okay, sorry, my apologies. Concern?
We're clear on the amendment? Okay. It's just that instead of declining, we're going to move forward with some recommendations and working together over that concern of the planning in that area? Yeah, that's not the right wording either, but do we have clarity on what we mean for that change?
I know it says declined, and to me, it's clearer if instead of declined, just say considered. It's not approved or anything, but it's consideration to that request to expand. Is that any closer? Well, I kind of, I think of the airport, you know, by Hanover, like isn't it called the Hanover Airport, but it's in Brockton, there.
It's called the Saugeen Municipal Airport.
And you both own it?
It's owned by 3 municipalities.
Okay,
West Grey,
so it's
Hanover.
totally different, but small airports are kind of vital to communities as well, and the Wyerton Airport has a higher designation than some. I just know from attending our own airport meetings that it's got a designation, and yet it's hard to finance them all, and sometimes you need things like a restaurant or whatever other right at the airport to help with your finances. So I think they are important overall to our area, the small airports.
I agree as well. Go ahead, Milt.
I just want to comment as well that I really see where Mike is coming from on this. Like, to even express a concern of any, because it's sort of predetermining that it's a kind of a red flag, you know, before any planning justification or planning application or planning reports of any kind is being submitted. So I have a...
Yes.
So that the county of Bruce notify the Niagara Escarpment Commission that we have a specific interest in this issue at the county level, and that we have an expectation that we be consulted prior to any decisions being made regarding the plan amendment.
Okay. So that's going to be inserted in the recommendations.
Mr. Van Dorp will take care of it.
You'll take care of that. We can then go forward and move the recommendation that's before us. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Three. Okay, we are getting to the good stuff. All right, we can take a couple minutes break at least.
Can we take a break?